So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. iPhone SE 2020 over here. We're taking it up against the iPhone 12 mini today. Now, 2 weeks ago, I did a speed test between these two, and you've seen that they were pretty darn close. But in terms of the overall experience, that's what we're here to find out today. Now, keep in mind that both of these phones are targeting people who want a smaller device, but they're doing it in very different ways. So the iPhone SE is carrying on the classic iPhone 8 tradition, and some people feel kind of annoyed that they bought this phone thinking this is going to be Apple's small phone for the year, and then Apple turns around and makes their dream phone, the iPhone 12 mini with the all screen, and now this is the next one on their radar. So yeah, do keep in mind, I wasn't expecting this early on either, so this was quite a shocker and definitely a good one. But for those of you who bought an SE, you might want to consider doing a trade if you really do love the new 12 mini. Now, the 12 mini and the iPhone SE are very different in price. The iPhone SE 2020 right here looks very similar to the iPhone 8 and comes in at around $399, $350 around there. So this one is not going to cost you nowhere near what the 12 mini is going to cost. And that's because Apple's kind of using recycled parts here. They're changing the processor, putting A13, but they are using recycled old iPhone 8 bodies and shells. So over here, you can see that the iPhone 12 mini here is going to run you right around $699, maybe even more depending on your country. So the iPhone 12 mini is a flagship grade iPhone with a flagship grade price, but it does have a very small size here that's very comfortable in the hand. And that brings us on to the color options. So you have three for the SE. You have red, you have white, and black. Now for this phone, you got quite a few. You got that minty green color, you got blue, you got this black color, you got white, and you got product red. So more color options for the SE. And moving on to their body specifications, the iPhone 12 mini is actually lighter than the SE at 135 grams versus the 148 grams of the SE. This phone, even though it's thinner at 7.3 millimeters, only slightly, versus the 7.4 millimeters for the iPhone 12 mini, this phone actually weighs less. So the iPhone 12 mini does. So the iPhone SE is a little bit heavier, feels like a wider, heavier phone. So the 12 mini is the smallest feeling iPhone out. This one also has IP68. This one has IP67. And when we're talking about their display specification, you can see that the iPhone 12 mini will give you OLED display that gets 625 nits bright. Now, the iPhone SE 2020, what's neat about it is it also gets 625 nits bright, but it is using an LCD across a 750p display with only 326 ppi versus 476 ppi for this 12 mini. So the 12 mini is a far sharper panel when you are reading any type of text that does appear on the display. Now, across a smaller display, you don't see it as much, but comparatively to the SE, this is a big jump in the display. And if you look at the overall design, well, look at the bezels. Here's the thing with the bezels with the SE though. Even though it has bezels, it still displays the content across a 16:9 aspect ratio. So it feels very nice and wide, and it really displays content very well, even though it does have these thick bezels because of that aspect ratio. Now over here for the iPhone 12 mini, it just feels great to have such a stretched out panel on a smaller body. So you're getting like that comfortable feel of a small phone, but you're getting that feel of a larger phone when it comes to the actual display. So overall, you do have the Super Retina XDR OLED. This is a major win for the 12 mini. If you want the better quality display, you have to go for the 12 mini. If you want more of that classic 16:9 aspect ratio, you want a home button here, you'll definitely still appreciate the SE 2020. It's going to be one of the last classic design iPhones. I'm sure we're never going to see this again going forward. So this is their last chance here with the SE 2020. Now, when it comes to the software, you can see that the software for the iPhone 12 mini is going to be very similar to what was introduced back with the iPhone 10 in the way of operation. So Apple said the iPhone 10 was the future of iPhone. You're going to swipe up over here. You can no longer see though, when you go ahead and you swipe down, that's how you see your battery. So, you can't see it like you could on the SE. You could just see it there all the time. So that's kind of gone as well. Apple still hasn't figured out a way. I'm not sure why this company has not figured out a way to put a battery percentage somewhere up there, but they haven't. You can see right here, you can see it right away. Also on the SE, you will swipe up from the bottom, which definitely feels a little bit old school versus the 12 mini over here with the gestures as well when going through applications. Over here, you'll just hit the home button. Now, I find this home button very satisfying during our current pandemic right now. It's just easy to unlock the phone when out and about. You don't have to potentially take your mask off for a second to go ahead and get into your Face ID. So Face ID is not super useful when out and about right now, but still it's very useful at home and very useful when you're not wearing a mask. It's pretty amazingly fast. And I love biometric authentication with this phone. So when you're in a banking app or when you're just making a purchase of any sort online, using your face is so fast. And this one is also fast, but you kind of got to do this where you just look at it with the 12 mini. So they do have different ways of operation in the software, but they both run the latest and greatest. You can see you will get the app library on both. You will get widgets on both of them. And because they both have very similar processors, you do have an A14 5nm and you have a 7nm A13. They're still pretty similar in terms of everyday performance. I do think if you're going for the long haul, you'll definitely want the 12 mini. This phone definitely built with that design to last a little bit longer, has the better processor to last a little bit longer. But right now in day-to-day speed, buying either one of these, you don't see much of a difference. And that's where the SE is strong value, because the SE, while it's $399, is giving you flagship grade performance. And that's one of its strongest suits, a very fast phone at a very reasonable price point. That's what I really love about recommending the SE 2020. All right, guys, so when it comes to the actual iPhone storage on both of these, here is where I find that the iPhone SE is a little bit better value. You can get this phone in the 400s with 128 gigs. For this one, 128 gigs, you're going to pay over $800 or near there, depending on the deal you do get. 256 gigs is where the SE becomes a little bit of a stretch for me. I wouldn't pay the $549 plus tax for the SE, depending on where you're at. Again, depending on the country you live or where you're at, this could be even more or less. But for me, the price jumps significantly on the SE. It no longer becomes a good value at the 256 gig price. So for me, the sweet spot here is 128 gigs. And to be fair with you, I think the sweet spot is 128 gigs on this phone as well. But the 12 mini, again, you're paying for a lot more technology in here, 5G performance, the all new design here, Face ID. So definitely a big difference there in the price point for storage. So let's discuss the details of the camera. So you see we have a triple camera iPhone over there, the 12 Pro Max. This one gives you a dual camera, and that is a major upgrade over the camera in the iPhone SE 2020. Now, from a main lens perspective, if you're talking about just the primary lens, I don't think most average consumers are going to need more than what that SE offers. But if you are the person who's like, I need that wide angle, well, then the 12 mini is the small iPhone option for you. This thing can back out super wide, and it's just so far and away advanced over the iPhone SE 2020 that if you care about your camera a lot, this phone is like a pro pocket iPhone right here. It's really great. You can do 16:9 aspect, but here's the thing, you can do that on there as well. You can do HDR video on this phone. You can also do 4K 60. You can do 4K 60 on the front. It's a 12 megapixel versus a 7 megapixel here for the SE. So while I do really appreciate and really enjoy the iPhone SE for its simplicity factor, you still will get 4K 60 video on the rear of this phone. You don't get HDR video, and if you flip over to front, you're going back way down to a 7 megapixel camera. I say way down as if it's bad. It's not really bad, but the 12 mini is just so far and away better. It's so obvious. So I think if you're putting your money into these phones, where you're really putting it at is the cameras. That is a big major difference. You're going to get much better results for the 12 mini, no matter how you slice it. It's just definitely an overall better camera. But I think the results that you get from the iPhone SE 2020 are acceptable, but they kind of feel like an older iPhone's results. Kind of just feel like a regular iPhone 11 without having all that extra jazz on the camera. So definitely go with the 12 mini if you want the better cameras. They definitely are very superior in my book to the iPhone SE of 2020 in my experience. And I want to take it on to the battery life department here. So my experience with the battery life for both of these has not been stellar. I don't really like when phones have smaller batteries because then you're going to charge a little bit more. But I will state that both of these phones do have the capability of getting through one day if you do adjust the type of usage you do on here. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that if you were using a big phone and you were going hard on it all day, you know what I mean, like 6, 7 hours, 7, 8 hours screen time, don't expect that from these phones. These phones will definitely die out, and because they have smaller batteries, this battery percentage is likely over time to degrade a little bit faster than a phone with a larger battery. So do keep in mind, battery life, not a strong suit. Get into focus. Battery life, not a strong suit for either of these, but I will say that the 12 mini does have the better battery life. It does have maybe 2 hours more, in my experience, an hour to 2 more. It has a 2227 versus an 1821. So this is the smallest battery you're getting in an iPhone this year, the iPhone SE 2020. So definitely pick up the 12 mini if you want a slightly better battery performance in your small iPhone. You will not regret it. But again, weigh your expectations. Don't get either of these phones thinking, you know what, I'm going to get amazing battery life, because you're not going to compare to the other offerings in a larger smartphone, for example. But that is a sacrifice I think a lot of people want a smaller phone are willing to make, as your screen time will probably go down anyway, because you probably don't want to be on your phone all day if you're buying a smaller phone in the first place. So let's talk about the audio performance.
iPhone 12, you're smart. What is up?
So the iPhone 12 here, the 12 mini,
Nick here, helping you to master your technology.
for a small phone, it's really impressive. I remember the days when Apple used to put weak speakers on the SE, the smaller phones. Now the 12 mini is a beast in the audio performance.
Comparison, I compared all 4 of the latest 12 series
And while the SE 2020
devices, this one for me came out on top for
also very happy and acceptable stereo speakers on here, they're not quite as full as the ones on the 12 mini here. So let's have a listen again.
In this episode, I want to revisit the iPhone 12 after a month of
The speakers are just louder for the 12 mini, so if you do want a louder, more full experience, the stereo sound on the 12 mini is also at a higher level than the SE. Both have Bluetooth 5.0, so connecting to both of these when you are going to your AirPods or the headphones is going to be very similar on the day-to-day. Now, an area where I find both of these to be pretty darn good is the phone call quality. However, I find the 12 mini had better reception, held on a little bit stronger. And yes, I have been seeing some 5G coming in and out between LTE. Some people have been complaining about that on the internet, and I've actually experienced that a couple times as well. But overall, versus prior iPhones with Intel modems, this has been really good here for the 12 mini. We do have 5G performance here, 4G LTE on the SE 2020. So again, you're future-proofing yourself if you go with this small phone. So there's a lot of jumps over this SE 2020 that kind of justify that extra cost. So in conclusion, which phone is better for the money? This is a really tough one in terms of which offers a better value. It really depends. If you want a small iPhone and you want it at, a flagship grade, I think the SE or the 12 mini actually really represents a good value. It comes in at under $800 to start. If they would have went over 800, this would have been ridiculous. This is very similar to the price points of the 5S back in the day. It's a little bit more, but back in the day, the 5S was like $650, $750. I remember it clearly. And for the iPhone SE at this $399 price, this, in the fours, this is a really good price point for an iPhone. And if you're looking for, just probably the best overall, price point for speed and just giving you the iPhone essentials you need, the SE is an excellent option. I think this is a great option for people who just are not willing to pay that or just cannot do it at the moment. They're going to get most of what they need from the iOS experience here on the SE and be very happy with it. But you might be desiring some more specifications in the future. You might be desiring an upgrade. I think 12 mini has more longevity if you do buy this. Like, you won't feel like you want an upgrade as fast as you will with this phone. So let me know your thoughts on both of these. Oh, and by the way, the resale value will be definitely stronger for the 12 mini. So let me know your thoughts on both of these. Which one would you pick up, the 12 mini or the iPhone SE 2020? Still both great options to put under the tree this year for the holiday season. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Be sure to be well, and peace.
you.